Welcome to a special episode of World 1-1, everybody. We are joined, I am your host, Larry, the Nordic Beast, joined by my co-host, Eddie V.
Shooting at heart and contrast the best.
Adrian has another game out in Nieto.
Kill bugs because they're stupid.
And our very special guest this week, we have the creator of Axiom Verge, the legend, Tom Happ.
Hello.
Yay! Welcome, Tom. Welcome.
So, as per usual, we typically open up with what we've been playing this week. In particular, Tom, what's been on your plate? What have you been playing or building?
Just Mass Effect Andromeda.
Ooh. Thoughts. I need to hear thoughts.
Sorry?
Oh, I need to hear your thoughts, Tom, on what you think about the game.
I think it's a great game. Yeah, it's, I don't know, a lot of fun.
Did you play the trilogy before?
Trinity?
The trilogy.
From The Matrix?
No, the trilogy.
Yes. Yeah, I did.
I want to play with Trinity from The Matrix.
This now needs to be DLC. Let's make this happen.
Just play that bad Sega game that came out in the early 2000s.
No. So lots of Mass Effect. I take it you're in the camp of it's not garbage, because I know there was a whole lot of hubbub about that, when that dropped, up until some patching came through.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know what those people are talking about. I can only imagine that they are from the set of people that never played the original Mass Effect, so they didn't know what to expect. Maybe they thought it would be like Zelda Breath of the Wild, or I don't know, Tomb Raider or something.
Well, wasn't it most of the glitches people were talking about, like the facial recognition or something of the characters and stuff that everybody was complaining about?
Yeah, I mean, it's not the best facial animation I've ever seen. But then again, I mean, the game is just absolutely enormous. I'm with a game like this where like the you can tell, like, at least with all the humans, that the faces are some kind of procedural generation, just like in the Elder Scrolls type series. If it looks on par with like Skyrim or Oblivion or something like that, that's pretty much as you would expect. I don't really worry because I don't play the games for the graphics necessarily.
You play it for like the narrative, the story.
Yeah, like generally just for like the narrative, for like all the RPG stuff, like getting the weapons and upgrading the character, and so on and so forth. I don't know, like being, having all the dialogue and just all the science fiction-y type things are what I care about. But I know, like, I guess a lot of people, I guess it kind of depends on what you like about Mass Effect. Maybe the people who like, the Call of Duty aspect of it, where it's a shooter, play it more for that, and they expect more wow factor from the visuals than they do from the actual breadth of the quests and the stats and stuff like that you can upgrade. And I don't know, it's just conjecture on my part.
Well, it looks like just like you said, people who probably haven't played the trilogy or anything like that there's just something about it. I think a lot of people wanted to feel like a Mass Effect game, but for some unknown reason, to them, it doesn't feel that way.
Maybe. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it definitely feels to me like, better in every way than the previous Mass Effect games. It improves upon like every aspect. I don't remember the facial animation from the previous game, so maybe it was great. I just don't remember in that much detail. I played the first game twice, and the other 2 games I played once each.
Yeah. I probably ran through Mass Effect 2 and 3 probably about 3 times, like the whole game. Yeah. All right, that's cool. That's cool. I still got to pick it up because I do want to dive into that game. It's just one of the spring games winter holiday games that I'm missing right now.
Yeah, there's way too many games came out all at once. So like I haven't yet played Horizon Zero Dawn.
Oh, I have.
Just because like I was busy playing Resident Evil 7, and then like Zelda came out, and then Mass Effect and like Horizon Zero Dawn was in between them all. So
this whole spring has been like second Christmas.
Dude.
Yeah.
I think I think I got most of the major games. Oh, go ahead, Tom. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I was going to say like I don't remember what did come out for Christmas.
Titanfall 2, Infinite Warfare, Battlefield 1. Oh my goodness, I really don't know.
I stand corrected. This isn't second Christmas. This is the Christmas we wanted.
Yeah.
From almost 2 years ago. Thanks, E3, 2015.
Right. Adrian, what have you been playing?
Well, now that I'm finally back from the Land of the Dead, I've been catching up with Yooka-Laylee. You're going to hear my thoughts on that pretty soon. The beta for Dawn of War 3, Warhammer 40k, just started this weekend. I was playing with my friends. It's really fun.
Didn't they just release that like out of nowhere? People were just like, oh.
No. It was announced last year, late last year.
Yeah, but people were just like, oh, it dropped. And, like, people are surprised that it even came out. Like, I think
it's not out yet. I was just playing the beta.
Right, the beta.
It comes out next month.
Right, the beta, but they didn't know that they dropped it. Like, people were just like, oh, this came out? And then
I think nobody really checked their website. But me and my friends, we're like very big fans, so we've known for a while. It finally dropped, so that's like a good thing. So yeah, I was playing that. It's really enjoyable. I don't think I can buy the game next month because Mario Kart and Puyo Puyo Tetris are taking priority on my gaming list. Also, against my better judgment, I picked up Persona 5.
Yes.
So yeah, we'll see if I end up keeping that or I'm gonna return it. We'll see.
Adrian, you need to thank Tom, because if he wasn't here, this week's episode would have been titled Adrian is actually technically a lich.
Why?
Because we've had Adrian's not dead and Adrian is a zombie.
Oh, there you go.
like this some bad trilogy B movie material.
Pretty much, yeah.
So, Tom, you saved Adrian from another embarrassing episode title.
Thank you.
I do my best.
You've done it well. Eddie, what have you been playing?
Oh, everybody take a seat because it's going to be a minute. I played, just got Ghost Recon Wildlands for Xbox One. I started that up. It's pretty much the Division, the Division cross Watch Dogs 2. So it's an Ubisoft game. Expect nothing spectacular about that. I'm kind of digging it. It's kind of weird because I played the beta and none of my beta information saved. So I'm just playing the game like brand new. Persona 5, I passed the first part of the game, getting further into it. Killer soundtrack. That soundtrack is so good. They announced that it's 110 songs on iTunes. Like the whole game soundtrack is on iTunes right now. Great music, something you could dance to. Still beautiful animation. So I'm enjoying that. Wonder Boy: The Dragon's Trap, I picked up. I'm almost done. I'm at the final boss. A review will be coming out for that game like real soon because it's not that long. For the $20 that I paid, it could have been a little bit cheaper, but I do enjoy it for what it is. Pokemon Sun and Moon, mostly Pokemon Sun, I've been grinding in. Picked up Miitomo, back up again with my new phone, so I'm trying to change my clothes and update stuff with that. Persona 5. Let's see. Horizon Zero Dawn. Everybody read the review. So, like I said, I'm finished with that. I'm probably am gonna go back to do the trial mode so I could like get a platinum for that game. I'm missing like 34% of that game right now. So hopefully I'll go back that, and then I'll be hooking my Wii U up to start on Tokyo Mirage Session, and start finishing Paper Mario Paint Stars or whatever that Mario game is. Color Splash, sorry. And I still gotta load up my Nier Automata so I could start that game because I feel like kicking some tail in the platinum game.
Right on. Had a real short list of stuff I've been playing just because I've been busy with other nonsense this week. Got a chance to finally play a little bit of the new drop shot mode on Rocket League, which is really fun. It just took
brilliant. It is brilliant, yeah.
I like it. It just took me a minute to get my bearings on what the hell I was doing. But beyond that, no. Stupid fun. Love every bit of that. Yay. Give me all the Rocket League. What's have I been playing? Played a little bit of Bugs Are Stupid yesterday when I downloaded it. The wife's been playing it too. For those that don't know, that's Adrian's fancy new game that you can get on iTunes and Google Play. So go get that for 99 cents. It's better than a double cheeseburger. So
I know this is just an audio podcast, but if you could see my face, I'm actually smiling.
Yeah, he has a beautiful smile, everybody.
Dinked around off and on with a little bit of Graceful Explosion Machine. What else have I been playing? I'm sure
I suck at that game.
I don't remember. I did actually hook my Wii U back up and was fiddling around with Axiom again in light of this week's show. And I was quite pleased, as a matter of fact. I got $10 of fun money because I've got a running thing with my wife right now because we're trying to teach the baby to sleep in her own bed. And I told her, I said, all right, here's the deal. For every night that you don't make an effort to try and get her to sleep in her bed, I get $5 of fun money towards my video games fund, and it's double on the weekends. So I got $10 banked, and I was wandering around the mall, and I walked into GameStop today, and lo and behold, there was the Steelbook edition of Axiom Verge on PC. I'm like, yep, that'll be mine, thank you. So that's been my games of the week. Beyond that, the main meat of our show, the reason we're all here, and that I'm sure most of you are listening, because I suspect we've probably picked up a handful of people that have never been with us before, and thank you for that. Tom Happ here to tell us, anything and everything to do with Axiom and everything else that's coming beyond that. So, Tom, for anybody that's listening that hasn't picked it up and isn't familiar, throw us the elevator pitch for Axiom. It's a good enough place to start.
It's a retro side-scrolling action adventure Metroidvania science fiction extravaganza.
I get right behind it. That's
crap.
The perfect elevator. Yeah. So how did you sink into doing Axiom? I mean, was there something that was, already just kind of crawling around your brain going, this is the game I have to make? Or was there more, I want to make a Metroidvania game and just kind of piece it together from there?
It pretty much evolved. Like I sort of, my original idea was I just wanted to kind of take my favorite elements of every 8-bit game that I enjoyed. But it was kind of like as I made it, it became more and more like a Metroid type of game. Primarily, I think at one point it was originally going to be like kind of like melee attacks, sort of like Rygar was my idea, and then I decided I could do a lot more with ranged weapons. So then when I made the main attack be a ranged weapon, then it started, all kind of like converging towards Metroid-like experience.
When you was thinking about it, were you thinking of like almost like Castlevania 2, Simon's Quest, where it's kind of still of a Metroid game, but the text was ranged? Did you have that mindset first and then switch to Metroid, or? Yeah,
I'd say like a little bit. Yeah, like I I wanted there to be like a little bit more dialogue and that kind of thing. I don't think I ever wanted there to be a currency like Simon's Quest has, but definitely more of that kind of thing. It wouldn't be a whip, but it was going to be something like that, and it just ended up changing. Even the visual style ended up changing at one point where I realized that it was a lot for this type of game that I was making to have all of the backgrounds be kind of composed of these blocks that each had different properties. So I even went and kind of like changed how the environment of the game looked at one point, where before that point it could have looked more like Castlevania or Blaster Master or Rygar, but then it like decidedly took a shift for looking more like the NES Metroid.
Well, I was looking at it, and you might see like NES Metroid. It kind of reminded me of Batman, the game from the movie that Sunsoft made. It kind of gave me that visual feel to it. Like even with listening to the music, I was just like, this is Metroid meets Batman.
Yeah, well, that was a beautiful game. It does, and Axiom Verge does this too, where it makes a use of black in almost every tile and every background.
Yes.
So it's a very like stark comic book kind of style where there's black and then there's the light color, so it's there aren't too many gradations, and that's sort of like the Axiom Verge vibe too. Is there's a lot of black and just completely shadowed areas with nothing in them.
Right. I would say I was trying to explain it to a friend of mine at one point, and I told him, I said, Axiom is like if somebody handed Metroid to H.R. Geiger and let Geiger have a field day with it. That was the very distinct vibe that I had playing through it, and just aesthetically it had very much that, kind of biomech look to it, just the almost grotesque in areas in a fantastic sort of way. And I loved every bit of that.
Cool.
So, Tom, can I ask, you grew up with the 8-bit games of the NES. Were there any kind of arcade games that inspired you also while making Axiom Verge?
I don't know so much. Maybe a little bit of like R-Type is in there, but not overtly. A lot of, I think I'd say like a lot of my weapon inspiration comes from shoot 'em up games like R-Type and Thunder Force and whatnot, but those aren't isolated to just the arcades.
Okay, because
Contra, definitely, that was an arcade game, but it was also an NES game.
Yeah. Because one of the boss fights is like, it's a really big, huge boss, and it kind of like you got to do like multi parts. I cannot think of it. I think it's like I don't think it's the first boss. It may be the second or third one. It's like the screen is like huge. So when I fought it, I was just like, this is kind of like, it was cool because of course you couldn't do anything like that on the NES game. But I'm looking at it, I'm just like, this feels like an arcade game almost. Like it kind of felt like I wanted 3 other people to join me to fight the boss. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I did look a lot at like Metal Slug and just kind of like, I'm not good enough to play through every Metal Slug and get through all the bosses, but I would go on to YouTube and like look at at the playthroughs people do on there, and just see, like, if you notice, all the bosses in that game have individual animations, and when one part is destroyed, like, something will open up and come out of the boss in another part. And that one boss, I kind of wish I had done it more for other bosses too, but that one boss is sort of like that, where there's multiple stages to the boss's body, and just like the level of aggression that he has as you destroy more and more of him.
Right on. One thing I want to ask, because playing through it, I was genuinely shocked and impressed at how much story is there and how much that story really sucked me into wanting to play more and go, what happens next? Which is not something that you usually get a whole lot of in a Metroidvania game. I'm curious as to, where that story came from. Was there a driving inspiration behind that? And, how fleshed out was it in your head when you started this versus when you finished?
The story, I guess, is kind of like, it's meant to be a little bit like, the old Farscape TV show / Buck Rogers, where the character is brought to an alternate world. I'd say there's a lot of influence from Alistair Reynolds and Greg Egan in there, between all of the nanotechnology and the references to like computable worlds, and how the weapon is basically works as a kind of cellular automata modifying the physics of things.
Right.
So that would be the inspiration. It's not any one of those things by itself, but it's a lot of different things.
Did you think your main character looks like the main character from Cowboy Bebop because of the hair? Every time I look at it, I think of Cowboy Bebop. Spike. Yeah,
Spike Spiegel. Yeah, I guess because did he have some sideburns?
No, Spike. Spike had the hair. His partner had the sideburns.
That's true. Yeah. I don't remember that guy's name, but the big dude. But yeah, it's a little bit like that. I wasn't overtly trying to make him look anime, but I guess like when you reduce the colors to like 4, that tends to happen.
Mm-hmm. I mean, because it has a nice look to him as a character, and when you see him, kind of like when you see him in the cutscenes and stuff, like his design fits the story, fits the environment that he's in when you start up the game.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely meant to be a little bit like hapless. Like if you look even on the sprite, his hair has like a couple of little strands sticking out, like he's a little bit mad scientist-y, didn't really like pay attention to what he did with his hair that morning and just came to work, and that's like supposed to be the general feel he has, where he's he's not a Superman, he just has a super gun, and is just sort of like trying to survive.
Right.
So Tom, you're a programmer. As a programmer myself as well, was that like his look, especially his hair, like kind of like an inspiration from yourself too? Because like I go to the office and I don't care how I look. It's just like I just want to get through the day. I want to finish what I'm working on.
I mean, maybe to a degree. I don't know. Like generally, like I've got this. My hair is kind of weird in that I don't really have to do anything with it. It just like forms into its own shape on its own. So, but I guess like a little bit, if I like wake up, straight out of bed, like it'll be like that. So I kind of have.
Okay.
How did you like when you was designing this character? Like, did you have to have like a lot of rough draft and art before you made a final decision on how he looks? Yeah.
I mean, I had a lot. Like originally, before I mentioned Farscape, like originally I had him looking a lot like John Crichton from Farscape, and he actually had like a black shirt and black pants, and he didn't really have like that puffy of hair. It was kind of close cropped, and like things just changed as I went on. I was like, well, like Crichton was always sort of like, he's supposed to be a scientist, but he was a little bit too badass. Like you don't believe that a scientist can actually do the things he does. So like I tried to make the character look a little bit more hapless, and I also had to change his color palette because like because the background was so dark and black,
Mhm.
any black on the character would blend right into it. So, I gave him the red shirt and the pants. I think are brown or gray, and I also made the hair bigger to make his head stand out more and like just have it have more character, because otherwise you sort of in that resolution you just sort of would lose. A lot of games have the generic male, which is kind of what John Crichton is, but you kind of lose any of that at the 8-bit resolution. So you have to exaggerate a lot of things, and I did that to the extent that I was willing to do it. I didn't want to make him cartoony, but I did want to make him relatable even at the pixel level.
Okay,
I think it came through great, especially once you picked up the lab coat. Looked fantastic. He had that distinct scientist, like he got pulled out of the lab and he's suddenly having a real bad day kind of thing going on.
Yeah, and that's kind of like his generic look is with the lab coat. The reason he doesn't start with the lab coat was just so that I could have the lab coat be as an upgrade and like have you have that feeling of like, oh, cool, I'm upgraded. But that's, how I imagine his avatar is always having a lab coat on.
Kind of like getting like a new Samus suit, a new suit for Samus, I should say.
Yeah, and it changes, little spikes or whatever come out of the shoulder pads, and you feel like, oh yeah, she's got more, badassery behind her now.
Definitely. So, I mean, and the upgrades throughout were phenomenal. I'm curious how you came to the idea of glitching as a power or as a mechanic.
It was kind of I didn't immediately come across it, but development on the game, I was working on it for like 5 years part time, and it was actually like a year and a half into things that I was trying to think of like, well, I mean, what can I do to make this game special? Like I was initially thinking about like the secret worlds and Super Metroid. I don't know if you ever, or in regular Metroid, if you'd ever tried like the wall walking trick and you could go outside of the map and find these basically like misinterpreted areas of data. It would let you go through them. And I was like, well, is there some way I could make that a part of the game? And then I started kind of coming up with other things, like, well, there's also the Game Genie and its passwords and all kinds of things. I just started thinking of more and more things, and it was basically like there were so many glitches that I could think of that it was sort of like they're not all super useful, but they're interesting. So like I kind of combined everything into that one gun, like that glitch ray can glitch things, but it's a different effect on each monster, so that not all of them do something useful, but they should all give you like the feeling of like it's a mistake, not meant to happen, and kind of like give it like that colorfulness and also give you a reason to try and glitch everything to see what it does.
Right. I on the back of your comment, 5 years developing, at least part-time, wanted to touch on one of the listener questions that popped up was, which platform was the most challenging and which was the easiest to bring Axiom Verge to?
Well, I developed it for like PC and PlayStation 4 pretty much simultaneously. And the other platforms were more of like I actually had to hire people to port them because like in the case of Wii U, for instance, there's no the library I used, Monogame, there's no version of that for Wii U, or there wasn't at the time.
Yeah. Because Unity was
like,
big. Unity was big on Wii U, on the Wii U platform.
Yeah, and so I never used Unity, and I I'd say the most difficult one would have to have been the Vita one, because it was like we were contractually obligated to launch it on Vita as a requirement in return for like Sony's funding, and Sony had thought that they would have Mono Game ported and running on Vita, but it actually wasn't, and it took about a year for Sickhead Games to get it to the point where it could run on the Vita. So the Vita launch of the game was delayed about a year, and that was the most challenging one because like not only was it the platform is of the ones I launched on, it has like the least memory, the lowest resolution, it had the most problems to overcome, and it was never perfect, but it also had at the same time like a lot of passionate fans that were like, we just want this for the Vita, and you promised us the Vita, a year ago or more. So where is it? Like, why are you taking so long? And there was nothing I could do about it, other than like wait for the Mono Game port to finish.
Well, was it weird that you say, because when you said that you was from a contract with Sony to bring it to PS4 and Vita, was it weird to see that they were using two different like development kits? So in order for it to work on Vita, you kind of, I want to say you kind of it felt like you had to restart from the bottom even to get it to start. Like, did it ever feel like that way?
I mean, like, no console iteration ever ends up using the same development kit until like now when they have the PlayStation Plus and the Xbox Scorpio or whatever it is. But so like I wasn't expecting it to be the same. I was kind of surprised that it even could work at all on the Vita, with like a lot of the shader effects and stuff I was doing. But I guess the only surprise I had was that, I don't know what the situation was, like why they didn't have the C# like engine running on it to begin with, because they had the PlayStation Mobile, which was like a limited version of C# that could run, and it was restricted in the amount of memory that was available. And like I was kind of thinking, can't you just use that and like remove the restriction, like the memory restriction? But I think there was some kind of copyright going on between Xamarin, the people who make the mono version of C# for all non-PC platforms, and Sony. And I think it was like Xamarin wanted more money than Sony could pay. It was some political thing like that was beyond my control, but that I didn't know about when I first agreed to it. So
did you think you had second thoughts about the Vita version when Vita actually came out, and you probably was looking at sales and probably looking at complaints that people really wasn't buying it, or really wasn't like, this game should have been on 3DS since that's more popular and probably would have been easier to get on than the Vita? Because definitely when the Vita came out, with the memory card fiasco and stuff like that, did you have were you kind of like a little bit worried about that after seeing how Vita was doing in the States when it first came out, before you even brought out the game?
I wasn't actually too worried about it, because like the Vita has sort of always had this reputation of being the indie console, just because of so many indie games that come out on it. And so I figured like the audience for my game is playing it, and that kind of turned out to be right. Like even though it was a year late, I think it was still sold like the third most after like PS4 and PC. I could be wrong. It might be that Xbox is now selling more than it, but it did like do pretty well. It was definitely worthwhile to release on the Vita,
Well, I think the problem what happened was that the support for the Vita kind of almost dropped quickly after the system came out. So when a lot of games were coming out for it, you know, it was digital and it was indie. Like pretty much people weren't going to stores buying the like physical copy games. So that's why I kind of let before it turned out to be an indie game, and for some people they hacked it and made it into a 3D a new looking 3DS or NES emulator style system. So it was just that kind of worrisome, because I knew it was coming out for PS4, and I knew that was a very big deal for Sony. But like the Vita one, I was kind of worried about it, because when it was announced that it was going to be delayed and people got upset, it was just like, well, you guys probably want to play this on the console first before you make any decision if you want to double down and get it on Vita or get it on PC. Oh.
Yeah.
So actually, a funny story about the whole Vita stuff. I like everybody that knows me knows that I have very strong feelings against the Vita. Just listen to any other episode; I'm pretty sure you'll find it. But I remember when I saw Axiom Verge that it was coming to Vita, I was just like, oh man, this is great. It's finally a reason for me to use my Vita. Like I've been dreading the moment. Since the moment I bought this console, I've been dreading it. So I was super excited. Wake up the morning of the release date, turn on my Vita. Oh, it doesn't have any use. All right, let's let it charge. Okay, it's finally charged. Let's update it because I haven't turned it on in quite a while.
It makes you update the OS.
Yeah, and after all that it's done, I go into the store and I don't see it. I was just like, oh, hold on a second. That's weird. Maybe the PS Store updates like later in the afternoon or something. So I went on Twitter and I couldn't find anything. So I tweeted you actually, Tom, and you candidly reply surprisingly quickly, actually, just saying like, yeah, it is coming later. And I was just like, well, I mean, all right, that's it. It is the way it is. I just like let it go and whatnot. I didn't have a PS4. I still don't have a PS4. I have one borrowed, so I play games on that. But then I pick it up on PC, and now I'm just thinking like, please make a Switch port because I would love to play that on the Switch instead.
Yeah. Well, we're working on it. Like, actually, we're working on a retail version of the game. Like, so there will be a retail PS4 and a retail Xbox and a retail
Wii U. I
don't know if Wii U or maybe Wii U and maybe Vita. I'm not so sure about the other two. I know it's been announced.
Yeah, it was PS4, Wii U, and Vita. I didn't see the Xbox One.
I was very surprised that was announced as a physical, the Multiverse Edition coming to the Wii U, because you get the distinction of being the last physical release on the Wii U with that as well.
Probably, yeah. And it's sort of weird. Like, it was actually just because there weren't that many Wii U titles released. It was actually the highest rated Wii U title last year, which is pretty strange. Like a strange feeling, you know. It did sell Wii U too.
It was that aesthetic. People were just like, this needs to be on a Nintendo console, because if you think of Metroid, you think of that cross controller and playing it with NES gamepad, and everybody probably thought that the feel of it, to have both that Super Metroid on their Wii U and have Axiom Verge, it was just people was holding Axiom Verge up like they hold up Shovel Knight. So they held that up in that kind of regard. So with it coming to Wii U, people were happy to get it, because you would think that with PS4 being the best-selling console of the generation, that you will actually sell a lot of copies. But to hear that it kind of did very well on the Wii U, that's impressive.
Yeah, I mean, it did pretty well. It basically when it launched on Wii U, it did better than it did on the Xbox One at launch. Although now the Wii U sales have dropped off completely because everyone is getting the Switch.
Mm-hmm.
where the Xbox and other platforms are kind of staying steady. But yeah, I expect we're trying to get the physical release so that we can have a Switch physical release. And I don't really know where I don't know enough to know where that's at right now.
Well,
but we're trying is the best I can tell you.
I know people definitely want the Wii U version. Like people, they looked at the PS4, they looked at the Vita, they were kind of like, "Where that's okay." But when they seen that it was coming to Wii U, everybody wants it. Reason being, it's going to become a collector's item for a lot of people, and with people who don't have a Switch, who still want to play not virtual console, that still want to play Axiom Verge, and who haven't bought the digital version, this is going to be the ultimate version for them. But all the stuff that's coming on with it, they're going to treasure it because there might be limited copies. And usually people who want that at the time being, sometimes they feel like they could wait that it always be around. But once that print one is gone, shoot, that's going to be the only copy that they're going to have. So people really want that game because they see it as a collector's copy, a collector's version on Wii U compared to the other systems.
I know for me, at least, when Axiom finally released on the Wii U, a year or so ago, I kind of watched it from afar because I don't have a PS4, and the whole time when it finally got there, I just thought it felt like it was coming home to where it belonged. At least for me personally, being a Metroid nut, I want to play those Metroidvania games on a Nintendo console. That feels like where they belong to me. So,
yeah.
Well, how did you feel after you released Axiom Verge on PS4? Were you relieved that it was out, and did you check comments and reviews, and did that do anything about how you viewed it or something?
I'm not sure I followed. I mean, it did very well, so I was happy about that.
I mean, were you happy seeing looking at comments and stuff, on reviews and stuff, or people just praising you or showing you love for this game? How did that make you feel?
Yeah, a lot of people really liked it. Generally, I guess if there was anything I didn't respond well to would be sometimes people have extremely negative or extremely positive responses. I'm not really sure it's the best game ever made, but people would say that, But on the other hand, there are some people say this is the worst, this is the worst thing ever. How could anyone play it? But by and large, it seemed like people liked it. So I don't have too much to complain about, really.
Were you surprised that I don't know if you check a lot of people or hear a lot of podcasts where they nominated Game of the Year? Were you kind of happy about that?
Yeah. I mean, I was really happy. That's what everyone dreams would happen. So that was great. I even went to this. Oh man, his name is slipping my mind, but the Game Awards ceremony. His Game Awards ceremony, and I was one of the nominees for that, so that was really cool going there and seeing them list my game among the nominees. I didn't win, obviously, but it was still pretty neat and a little bit surreal, even that I would be considered for something like that.
Right.
Good.
I want to hit on another listener question here, actually from the same gentleman, Joe Curley, asked or writes, it has been suggested that Yooka-Laylee has been guilty of stubbornly clinging to outdated mechanics to the detriment of the overall product for the sake of nostalgia. Were there any ideas or homages to Super Metroid or similar games that you had to remove from the game because it didn't fit with what you were trying to do? Where should you or anyone trying to make a nostalgic retro-style game like this draw the line between keeping an outdated mechanic in for nostalgia's sake and bringing a mechanic in line with the modern landscape of games today?
I think I don't know. I think you sort of have to like feel around for it. Most of the grievances of those old games are what we call like quality of life. Like they're just these like annoyances that don't help the game. For example, if you make the game so hard, you can never get anywhere in it. Like that is just that kind of that was from the origin of console games, coming from the arcades, and they would make them hard so that they would use more quarters. And then game designers used the same techniques on a console where it made no sense. So like that kind of thing. I don't make it so that you lose all your stuff when you die. Like it basically saves everything, and the only penalty for dying in Axiom Verge is just that you get returned to the last save point. Just like there's assorted other things like that are. I think they're just like little. You take them for granted in games nowadays, but back in the 80s, they were losing my train of thought. They were
part of the game design, because even if you play something like Mega Man, you have to reach a halfway point, and where you die, you have to go back to that halfway point and do all that challenge all over again. In that kind of sense.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I think, like, generally, you want to try and make the game feel like those classic games felt at the time that you played them. You don't want them to feel the way they feel now, where, like, they tend to be frustrating, or they tend to be, super short and super hard, and have a lot of what would be considered mistakes in them now.
Right. Because if you really want to go like hard, you would not have any save points. You would have literally gave them a long code that they had to enter to get to where they was at with their powers.
Right. Or even
exactly.
Or if you look at Rygar, there were no codes or saves.
Yeah, you literally had to play that whole game straight.
Yeah, in one sitting, or just leave your Nintendo on, which is, I think, what I did.
I actually beat Rygar in one sitting. That and Bionic Commando. I beat that in one sitting. Oh my goodness, what was I doing back as a kid?
Eddie's just a glutton for punishment, though. That's why he goes around playing things like 1886 The Order.
Hey, I struggled to do Deadly Towers back in the day.
Oh my lord, that game was impossible.
Oh, thank you. That and the Goonies too. I couldn't figure none of the Goonies. I couldn't figure that out at all. And that terrible Friday the 13th. Oh my goodness.
Oh Lord. Another one here. We've got Adam Herbstrite, and I'm pretty sure I just butchered that. Wants to know how long it took you to design all the levels, or do all the level design would be a more accurate term.
I'm not sure. I think, because it took me 5 years to make the whole game, but probably I was only making levels for like 3.5 years. But it's definitely hard to measure. Because when I was designing the levels, I was also like coding different things at the same time.
So you would kind of like design them and then code them after the design?
Just because like, like I'd code one area and then, or I'd design one area, but I'd also be like coding the items and stuff you needed to get and use in it. Mm-hmm. And then that would affect the design, and I'd have to like, wait until I coded the next thing before I could actually design it, like around it. Otherwise, it might not work the way I thought it would.
Right.
Okay.
We've got one here from Joe Granado. Wants to know if you would take on the challenge of porting a light version of Axiom Verge to the NES with their impending NES Maker tools. So they are creating a tool set to essentially, demake games down to something that would actually run on an NES.
I have no idea. It seems like something, if they're doing that a fan will probably do that without me having to do anything.
Yeah. They would have to almost like redesign it because, like I said, that big boss level, they would have to kind of shrink that down, and that might be hard.
Right. Question for myself, actually, or comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the music and the sound design for Axiom. I absolutely fell in love with the soundtrack. It's got a very Alien hint of haunting, but definitely more driving than stuff like Metroid, where a distinct influence is felt. And I'm curious, was it, where did the music come from? How did you settle on this is the sound?
I don't know. That's pretty hard to explain. I mean, I'd say a lot of it is based on just kind of like the electronica that I like to listen to. Would you
say something like Double Dragon for NES? Because that it kind of has that feel in that sound. Or maybe
I don't know, maybe a little bit. It was more like Sega Genesis FN synthesis type sounds, like in Streets of Rage or Revenge of Shinobi, where there's almost like a dance beat to a lot of the music. I think that was some of the inspiration behind it.
Right on.
Okay.
I say the soundtrack itself is phenomenal, and when I picked up the Game Trust PC version of Axiom today at the store, wife got home from work, and I told her, I'm like, you know what? That was the soundtrack alone was worth the $10 that I spent on it. So that's actually been blasting in my house all day since I got home.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, that's. I can't think of anything else that I really want to hit on here. I think we've covered almost everything.
Well, quick question. With most of the game not being told, like you get like the intro and then you get the parts meeting the sisters and stuff like that. Did you kind of at some point in the game want to make it very haunting? Because there's one of them. It looks like one of the sisters is dead, and you go through that area and you kind of get this feel like, is she gonna somehow come alive? Like, did you feel like you wanted to trick the player at one point in time and make them feel scared?
Maybe. I don't know. I wasn't explicitly like going for that, but I do like enjoy a lot of survival horror kind of experiences, and I think that probably found its way in there, whether or not I was meaning for it to.
Yeah, because like you pass that dead sister and there's no music. It's like it's silence. Like I kind of got chills. Be like, am I going to have to fight this thing? Like I'm going to get killed. Like I kind of felt that eerie feel, and I thought it was a nice touch to the game, because it really made you feel, be prepared, be like expect the unexpected. Like, did you kind of have that a little bit viewpoint or at some times?
So walking into that room and just suddenly having dead silence gives you that distinct feeling of very on edge.
Yeah, I don't know. There were some places where I had it be silent because I was sort of thinking, like, it doesn't feel wrong to me. It doesn't feel right to me to have, like, this dead person and also have, like, a dance beat going on, So I think I probably cut the sound for that reason. I don't know. I think maybe things that, like, make other people feel scared or creeped out, like don't have that effect on me.
Yes.
So I just like go, so it's hard for me to say.
With some of the cinematics, were you inspired kind of from Ninja Gaiden on the NES?
Yeah, definitely. That Ninja Gaiden NES, I think, set the bar for, pretty much all 2D cinematics and games for the longest time. You could go back and watch them now, and they're still like they're still visually and cinematically
impressive for their time.
Yeah, impressive and inspiring to look at.
What was your thoughts when you seeing Hayu BC get shot and it faded to that black before the Act 2 start? Like, did you not expect anything like that from that game?
From Ninja Gaiden?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of like, well, there was a little bit of like cognitive dissonance, I think, because like, you see the characters in these cutscenes, and I think it's like Irene shoots you, and then you wake up in the dungeon, and it's kind of like how did this happen?
Yeah.
What was the transition between the two places? Did she like drag him down there, and how did she manage to do that? Just because it was, you almost get the feeling the cutscenes are just made completely separate from the actual levels, so it doesn't actually have to connect.
Did you think you would have liked to recapture that in Axiom Verge? Has that ever like crossed your mind or anything?
No, I mean I sort of it can never be completely realistic because it's 2D, so
yes.
there's no going into the third dimension in there, and like you jump to get places instead of like walking around in the third dimension is kind of what jumping gives you in these games, so you have to jump super high. But I feel like it'd be going a little too far to like have it be like sort of like jumping around from area to area without it being contiguous. I'd like for it to be within the rules of this world for all to make sense.
Okay.
Fantastic. So,
well, can I ask one more question? I'm sorry, Larry. Just one more question.
Got him. Go for it.
If someone was to animate this into a miniseries, what style of animation would you like to go see? Would you like to see something like Transformers, or something like Cowboy Bebop, like that kind of style? Like, how would you like to see a four-part miniseries of this game be animated, or even in CGI? I should say. I don't know.
I mean, Cowboy Bebop. That would be. How could you turn down something like that?
I would pay $20 for that DVD or that Blu-ray to see it.
Honestly, I think there's enough story in there that a little more writing that could be fleshed out easily into something, cinematic worth watching and worth telling.
Or has anyone even addressed you about that, of making a movie or making something animated about Axiom Verge?
No, nobody has.
Wow, that's shocking.
That's almost criminal at this point now that I've got the thought in my head. So, Tom, what's next for you? Obviously there's some more happening with Axiom. Like you said, working on bringing it to Switch. You've got some physical releases coming. Is that all that's on the horizon that you're looking at now, or is there something that you're cooking beyond Axiom? Is there a sequel, or is there something brand new?
There's something that I'm cooking up, but I can't say because Dan Edelman has threatened my life.
Yes.
I'd tell you, but then he'd have to kill me. Is kind of how it works.
For those listeners, Dan Edelman is the former director of like the Nintendo Indies, like the Nindies at Nintendo. He left the company and started his own. He actually posted a picture on Twitter with the Axiom Verge banner. I think it's at some kind of conference or a con or something. It was just like sometime like last week. I don't know.
Yeah. There was a convention in Kuwait, over in the Middle East that he's attending. I think it's over now, but I almost went, but I decided it wasn't really worth it, and he was going to go anyway. So, but yeah, he's there representing Axiom Verge and Chasm and Mages of Mystralia.
Oh, that's cool. How was your relationship? Is it really good? Like, were you really impressed by his business sense and direction?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Definitely. I mean, I'd say in terms of, I'm probably like at least twice as rich as I would be without him. In terms of like, just like the contracts he's gotten me and the deals he's worked out. Without him. It would just be way too much for me to handle. So, because
did he help you get a team to do the Wii U port? Because I'm impressed on the people that you guys got or whatever, if that happened, to help you to help you port this game. Like, I was really impressed.
Yeah, that was Blitworks. And pretty much anything that's a contract like that, Dan will handle. Because it's. Like my experience is all in game development and anything like that that's like legalese, business type things. Mm-hmm. Trying to like play hardball with people to negotiate the best deal. That's what he has been doing for many years. When he used to work at XBLA, then he worked at Nintendo, so he like knows, he knows what the other guy is doing. Is thinking, because he's been the other guy before. So he helps out with all of that.
Were you impressed when you played the Wii U port? Because I don't know if you played it like from start to finish, or if you had your hand during that development. But when you was playing it, did you be like, "Wow, these guys got it locked down"? Like, were you impressed or anything?
Oh yeah. I mean. And the Wii U port is the only one with that second screen that has the map screen, built into it. So it is, to me, that's like the most full featured one. There's no achievement, so people will knock it for that. But it is like, I feel, but just because of that second screen, it makes the Wii U like the most fleshed out of all the versions.
Yes. Oh, that's cool. Have you ever thought about doing a 3DS port of it?
Oh yeah. We looked into it. We even had a guy like start to port it and like kind of estimate, but like there's a few things, like the screen resolution is completely wrong for the 3DS. Mm-hmm. And the performance of the 3DS is like barely enough it could play the game, but all the stuff that I do as like shader effects and stuff would need to be done as like, like you were given the example of the slug boss, right? Yes. Like, because there isn't enough resolution to zoom out the screen when on the PS4 and on the Vita, even when it zooms out, the screen for that becomes like 960 by 540. And the 3DS, is like 400 by 240 if you have the 3D on, and 800 by 240 with the 3D off. But either way, it doesn't give you enough to be able to do that. You'd have to like redesign that whole encounter, And so there were a lot of things like that were like, we're not sure if we should do this. And then like the Switch was announced, and then we were like, well, is the Switch going to be the new 3DS? And we were kind of thinking like, well, is there a reason to get a 3DS if you have the Switch, So that's why we kind of
like the 3DS still has like quite a bit of install base, right? And like many people I know personally are like, oh, I have a 3DS, I'll just keep it picking games for it while while I can before moving on to the Switch. For one, I moved from my 3DS. It's somewhere around the house. One of the backpacks. I don't even remember where it is. I carry my Switch with me all the time. So if you're looking for,
I want everything to be on Switch, just because I want to play everything on the Switch now.
Exactly. Yeah. That's exactly my same thought. So if you're looking for boats, my boat goes to a Switch version, please.
Well, Tom, have you looked at Contra 4 for DS, or is it? Yeah. Would you make a style game like that for the 3DS? If you had a team and you had a nice budget, would you make something like Contra 4 style, or something like Gunstar Heroes, something like very small that would fit the 3DS? Like, have you ever thought of making a game for 3DS?
I've thought of it. Like, I used to make GBA games like way long ago, and like that was a lot of fun. Just because just like messing with that kind of hardware is a lot of fun, and I think, I don't know, I think I would enjoy doing it if it didn't cost me anything. Like, sure, yeah, I wouldn't mind, but I don't know. On the other hand, like, I kind of feel like if I'm going to spend my time making something, I want to make the one thing that's in my vision to do the best on, and I'd rather like have some other team, like if they like really want to make the Gunstar Heroes 3DS type game, like let them make it and not like have me be in their way, you know?
Okay.
Fantastic. Tom, is there anything that you want to close on? Anything that you'd like to put out there for anyone that has or has not played Axiom yet?
Man, the possibilities are endless. Yeah, I'd say like just keep your eyes peeled. The physical edition should be coming. In 2017. We're hoping this summer. We definitely don't know about the Switch version yet, but we want to do that. We're going to do everything we can to try and make that happen. So,
actually, I hate to interrupt. I got a quick question on that. It just popped into my head. With the potential of a Switch version, would you look at doing a fully fleshed out package, something that has that manual and the artwork and whatnot with it, or would you go with what's becoming the standard of here's a case and a cartridge and that's it?
No, there definitely would be a manual in it. Like, I think what we would at least do what we're doing for like the PS4, where I think there's a manual, and I don't know if it has the soundtrack. You'll have to look on the page, but it's going to have like a separate DVD. We're shooting next week this documentary thing that's going to go into it. So just like a 10, 15 minute documentary. And the Switch would be like that too.
Yeah, because I think the soundtrack is coming along with the collector's edition for it. Sorry, I had to ask this. What's your favorite cereal? I usually ask.
This to everybody.
Yes.
I don't know, like Captain Crunch, or maybe like Cocoa, Captain Crunch.
And did you think for your next game, did you know what's your favorite genre of video games? First of all, I've never known. I know this was inspired from the Metroidvania series, but is there a certain genre? Like, do you like the sports genre, 2D, 3D? Like, what kind? Well, that's more gameplay wise.
Oh man, the games I like to play, it's usually different from the games I like to make. Like usually, because I always spend all day making retro games, so like when I play games, I usually want to play like these AAA, like I'm playing Mass Effect now. Like if Mass Effect isn't my favorite style of game, then maybe a survival horror like Silent Hill might be.
Ooh. Did you like Silent Hill 1? I can't get into that game. I tried so many times and I can't do it.
Yeah, I played it a long time ago, so I'm sure my tolerance was a lot higher. Because I played it right when Silent Hill 2 came out. I played Silent Hill 1 just to get like the feel, for what Silent Hill 2 was going to be. And I played those two back to back, and I really enjoyed it. But yeah, there is a remake though of Silent Hill 1, I think, for the Wii.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you ever played Deception from on the PlayStation 1 from Tecmo, where you had to lay the traps?
I have not.
Oh, I think you will really love that. Definitely with your mindset of making Axiom Verge, I would love to see how you would place the traps to kill your enemies. Like what?
Oh, okay.
Like look it up on YouTube if you ever get a chance. It's a really fun
Deception?
game.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, I'll make a note of that.
And it's from Tecmo, and that's the weirdest company to make a survival horror game like that.
All right. Well, I apologize. I interrupted. Just back in closing, anything out there that we should be on the lookout for?
No, that's about it. I know Dan's other game, Mages of Mistralia, is coming out soon. They just had a successful Kickstarter, so there's that. I'm not directly involved with development, but basically anything that helps Dan helps me. So check out that game if you can.
Right on. Okay.
Did you ever play Flash games back in the 80s or 90s? So something like Alien Hominid?
Not really. I'm trying to think. I played Road Skunk. I think that was about it for Flash games.
Because I cannot think of that well-known Flash game. They remade it. They brought it to Wii. They got a 3DS one.
N, is it N maybe? N plus?
Not N plus. It's kind of like a Metroid style road game.
You're not thinking of Cave Story, are you?
Cave Story, yeah.
I don't think that was a Flash game though. I think that was a PC game.
I thought it was Flash because it started as a Flash game. It was a small game, and then because the only console that it came to was Wii first. It had always been like a PC like Flash game, I think.
I know it was PC. I don't remember if it was Flash.
I have to look at it.
All right. Well, now for everybody's favorite part. This is where Eddie introduces his new ongoing podcast. Eddie talks about Eddie's other podcast for an hour podcast. This is where we plug our shit. Eddie, plug your shit.
Well, you guys, if you want to hear more of World 101 podcast, you guys can listen to it at shoutengine.com. Do check out Axiom Verge. It is available on PlayStation 4, on Wii U digitally. Soon they will be having a physical copy. Oh, and also Vita that you can check it out on, also NPC. So if you haven't picked it up, I do recommend getting Axiom Verge. But you can email World 101 podcast at world101podcast@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at world101 at world1_1 podcast. You can hear my podcast Optional Opinion at the Anomalous Radio Network.podbean.com, SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play, and other podcast apps. And hear my other podcast, Nintendo Power Block, on ngrradio.com. You can read my Optional Opinion blogs on ign.com and follow me on Twitter at @ThatRetroCode. I do more writing and stuff, and I will be coming with the Wonder Boy, the Dragon's Tale review. That will be available when you guys hear this podcast.
Adrian, plug your shit.
Follow me on at Frozen Machine on Twitter. That's the company that I run. Buy Bucks Are Stupid because Bucks are stupid, and it's only $1, so please just buy it already. It's fine. On the NBC Video Game Book Club, we're gonna be discussing Zelda sometime soon. No idea when. but soon. So check that out for sure.
Tom, anything to plug?
Nope, just Axiom Verge. I'm on Twitter. That's the main place to get to me. I have a Facebook too, but I tend not to remember that it exists.
What's your actual Twitter? Is it at Axiom Verge?
Yeah, it's just at Axiom Verge.
Okay.
And to close out, make sure you hit the like button on the Facebook page. Join the conversation on the World 1-1 podcast forums group. As Eddie said, we are up on Twitter at World1_1 podcast. You can also catch us on our home at shoutengine.com. You'll find us on iTunes and Google Play. We're out there, and no, I didn't pull the trigger on the YouTube thing. A few things came up, and it's still being hashed out, but it's coming
Larry,
with any luck.
I forgot. I had to ask Tom. The speed run portion that's in Axiom Verge. What was your thought about that? Like, how did that come about?
I mean, it was just basically, when I go to research other games for trying to get ideas, or just trying to see how other games are structured. Speed runs are one of the best ways because, especially if it's like 100% speed run. The person will take you through the whole game the fastest way they can. So, if I want to learn about a lot of games, I would just go through those. And, I was thinking, a lot of these people do speed runs, but, there's nothing in the game that, times them or tries to help them out, with the speed running aspect of it. So I figured I would just add it in there for them. It also is kind of a way of, taking out the dialogue and cutscenes for people that have already played it once and just want to go through the motions of getting the items or fighting the bosses and seeing how fast they can do it without having to watch a cutscene or whatever.
Yeah, because I thought that was. I think your game is the only game that promotes speed running, in the actual game.
I think Spelunky might have a speed run mode.
Oh.
Yeah. It's definitely a credit. I suspect that that community at large was greatly appreciative because it's something that takes some of the work out of speed running for them in terms of we have to build the framework and let's figure out which language is the fastest to get through the text and everything else. So. Well, Tom, it was a wonderful pleasure having you on. You are, of course, always welcome. We hope to see you again in the future in some of your future endeavors, especially when whatever it is that Dan Edelman is holding a knife to your throat over, becomes public. We'd love to get to chat a little bit more about it. That's it for us. Guys, thank you all for joining. Thank Christ Adrian is not dead. He's not a zombie. He is a lich.
We love you, Adrian.
And we will see you all back here next week. Guys, have a great week. Thank you so much.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for having me.
Bye.
Christ.